Yo, 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 what is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, more or less kind of back from the dead, if you will. More like a suspended moment in time. Yes, it has been, even though only a couple days, a minute. I want to give you guys an update and just let you know what has really been going on. And it's not necessarily the lack of effort for wanting to put something out. It is more of just the lack of time. And hopefully now, with some things underway and kind of completed task-wise here in Kingdom 65, we should be attempting to get back onto somewhat of a regular-ish routine. And again, we're going to dive in. I'm going to give you a 65 overview, let you know really what has been keeping a lot of my attention and why I am excited for what Kingdom 65 has to offer when it comes to the Call of Dragons community. So, I will probably be sporadically defogging because, again, 5th August Tone just opened up a little while, or hours ago, so I'm going to be attempting to do as much as I can while we go. But let's give you guys the lay of the land, at least as much as I'm able to, and we do have some data to show as well, so I'm pretty excited about that. So 65, just to kind of give those a recap of what we've been doing, kind of what has been happening. We came into this project with 9 alliances. We had almost 400 confirmed players. Probably by the time day 1 finished, we did, if not a little before, just because we still had some players that were trickling in wanting to join on that day, and then just up until, as well, the start of when the kingdom opened. How about what? It's nice when you can yawn and take a sip at the same time, get more water in the mouth. It's really a tactic. So with where we're at now, and again, we're going to show you some leaderboards for how things are playing. I'm actually pretty content. For those of you who have been around my channel for a while, you know that I am very big. I love being able to kind of spread my creative wings. I love being able to organize, to manage, to have oversight, supervise, if you will, right? I love being able to build and put things together, especially in this genre that I've come to know and love as kingdom builders. And so with Kingdom 65, we are spread out right now through, and I could probably show you this here in a moment. I just have to go, oops, nope, oh yeah, we'll do it that way. So we're spread out through the 7 regions. We have 7 Zone 1 regions, right? We have an alliance in each. We have 2 in Nevola and 2 in Forgotten Lands, just because of the flexibility that those 2 regions offer by being able to go into 2 different Zone 2s, right? Nevola can go into Hollandale and Lorcan. Forgotten Lands can go into Ogoru and Lorcan. So, again, and then typically those regions are usually a little bit-ish bigger, so it is nice to be able, when you have some flexibility there. And so that was just an opportunity that was awarded to us from us being able to have 9 alliances going in at the time. Given where we are, right, I could show you a little bit here for Sophrostia. And again, region is very healthy, very active. Pretty much all the zone and regions will more or less look like this. Some might be a little bit more active as far as having some more alliances, but I think it's really just a nice carryover because of the global launch of the game. So you're going to have a lot of kingdoms, especially this early on, as the game is still growing and just on an upward trajectory, that a lot of the kingdoms are going to be flush with activity and player base, which is really nice. Now, let's get a little bit to kind of state of affairs. What has actually been happening in 65? Honestly, nothing really much. Right? The goal of the project here is to develop a kingdom in a somewhat unimpeded way, right? Where players, alliances have the ability to progress their accounts without having to worry. Had to hold one in there about having their cities attacked, their farmers attacked, and that's really the objective, right? Is how can we create an environment where all of the players, if not as many as possible, can grow their accounts as freely as possible, but then also having the opportunity to choose when and where they want to conduct PvP, right? The idea is to just not have lawless PvP, but to have organized PvP. If you have organized PvP, it can sustain longer, which means for those players that like PvP, you'll get more out of it because you'll be able to gain more merits over a longer period of time compared to if you just went in, wrecked face, and then those players became demotivated and left. Now you don't have any merit generators for yourself. So again, you got to think about how you're going to use the cattle, if you know what I mean. Right? Not to make another farm reference, even though I love my farm references. But, and this is more one in a nicer way. It's just understanding that, right, there are pros and cons, there's good and bad ways on how to get the most out of what you want, but doing it in a more productive way, where you're not just demotivating and demoralizing your player base and just in increasing player drop-off rates within your kingdom. Right, the idea is that you want to nurture it. That's why we're taking, and I think it's a great stance when you think about what this project is showing. Again, this is something that I've tested before in other kingdom builders, so it's a tried and true method. But it's just a matter of everyone needing to be on that same page, right? From the leaders to the officers to the contributing members, and understanding that this is the goal that we're striving towards in the kingdom. And thankfully, we've been doing a really good job of that so far. Now, of course, it doesn't mean it doesn't come without its bumps and its hiccups, and there are some there. And I think a lot of where that comes from is just more in processes. Like, for example, we've had some situations in the kingdom where, some players have reached out to other players and alliances, right? Kind of AKA poaching. It's something that I'm just against, and usually you just don't need to do when, you're kind of when you're in more of a leveraging situation or position. And, that's something that we've, reiterated multiple times, we've gone over, but you still might have things that slip through the cracks. And usually those are just opportunities where you want to go out of your way to address those and either speak to the alliance's leadership so that way they can address it with their players if it is happening, or, right, I would usually do it as a backup. But things like that, thankfully we haven't had anyone that's been going around and, just kind of randomly hitting players or farmers. We haven't really had any rogues in the kingdom or any rogue alliances, which has been absolutely fantastic. And again, we'll show you a little bit of that when it comes to the leaderboards. I actually took some data last night for the top 40 or top 50 alliances, and the growth rate is actually pretty wild. And again, we have a good amount of spenders and a healthy mix of free to play in the kingdom. So it has been, I can say, an absolute pleasure to be here watching, witnessing, being able to support the player base. And my DMs typically blow up like crazy every day, whether that be more so in game. Well, it's ramping up in game now, but usually I'll kind of start the day off and I'll go through all my DMs. I'll get on my account, I'll do my dailies, kind of get myself up to par there, and then I'll check the Discord out, make sure I'm caught up on any of our chats, if there's any pings that I've been mentioned to, if I need to write up some mails, if we need to do some templates, if I need to reach out for diplomacy to go and speak to other alliances, which we've actually been sending out, which is pretty cool. I can actually show you guys an example here. But if I come in, you can see if I go to sent, right, you can see all these mails here. Like, I've basically just been sending a bunch of mails out to leaders of the top alliances. And again, this is essentially just like an introduction mail. Very simple, formatted, spaced out, but it just kind of gives people a little bit of information on what our project is. What are our goals? What are our future goals? Diplomacy with allies, right? Here's our Kingdom Discord. These are things that I think are really important if you want to take an active position in building a healthy kingdom. It also helps when, you kind of come in with the biggest stick, right? I've talked about this before, where you are able to not necessarily, bully like we talk about, but it gives you a position, as I mentioned previously or a few moments ago, of leverage, where, because you have the biggest stick, you are, I don't want to say allowed, but you are allotted some clout, if you will, right? Some cachet, or I'm forgetting the fancier word for it. But the short version is that, like, no one's really going to mess with you, right? More or less. And if you come in that way, and then you show a humbling side, it has great psychological impact on the player base, on leadership of other alliances, and it can help really kind of almost win the people over in that way. And I think again, like I said, there are some hiccups here and there, but thankfully, for the most part, I can say with confidence that it's been nice to see that developing. Now let's go ahead and show you a little bit of how the leaderboards are playing out. And I think I took a screenshot of this, but I can just show you guys my my spreadsheet, so it's no worries really. Okay, so let's do this if we can. We're going to switch this bad boy over here. Cool. So you could see here, right, and again, this was taken last night. I did this within about maybe like a 30-minute window. So again, accuracy and margin for error is really good. Now we get to kind of the top. So this is all based on millions currently. And this is something I sent out to our group last night in our Kingdom chat on the Discord server. So you can see here top down, right, we have, and I'm sure NWO is already at 100 mil by now, right? So I would assume, because it's been like 10 hours, 9-10 hours, that we probably have 3 100 mil alliances, which is great, because again, we're 4 days in right now, right? 4.5, or coming up on 4.5 days in. And then you have, right, our alliances are basically here, right? So we're all top 10, which is great. You have LG65, Legion of Dragons, Mr. Epic. I've had a chance to talk to him and a couple other of the tops, right? We're just kind of showing you the top 31 right now. What I focused on doing was grabbing all the alliances that were above 20 mil, so I kind of only went to 39, just because typically around this time, if you're 20 mil or above, right, you're at least semi to decently active. So again, you can see here, right, our range is currently, this is it, right, from 10, oops, right here. So it's 55, 56 to 107, right? So there's almost double from the bottom up. However, Asteria Sergeant Shadow, right, again, was Sergeant Shadow was our last ad in Sofrosty, but again, they're progressing well. And then Asteria is in the same region as Trip is here in Nivola. So again, right, there's some opportunities that we're thinking about there with kind of how to, maybe attempt to do some balancing through those that are joining, for example, not only with Nivola, but also in Forgotten Lands, right, because you have a little bit of power disparity there. Nothing that I think is anything worrisome. I just didn't think about attempting to kind of do trades or swaps and, for example, say like, hey, if someone's applying, as an example, if someone's applying to Z's Alliance here at NAPS, right, if they're strong, right, instead of them accepting, they would send them over to Justin's Alliance here, right, at NXE. Very similar situation with Trip and Nivola, right? If someone strong's applying to Trip's Alliance, right, she would send them to Asteria's Alliance, right, as an example. I just didn't actually think about this because the challenge with trying to do early balancing, power balancing in CoD is that you're region restricted. So you can't have someone who's in Forgotten Lands join someone in Darlin, right? At least through conventional, through like just standard means. You could do it if an alliance in Forgotten Lands goes into Darlin, as an example, and they capture a behemoth. Then players in Darlin can join that alliance in Forgotten Lands. You can do it that way. But you have to wait for the level 1 passes to open. Those just haven't opened up yet. So we're just not in a position at the moment to really do those types of things. And also, it would take a lot to coordinate that. Because if you wanted to try and do it throughout all the regions, or if you just wanted to do it even to the major regions, you still would have to have, or the regions that have the strongest alliances, you still would have to have your alliances either extend out, build forts throughout Zone 1, focus on capturing at least one behemoth in those areas. Again, it's I don't want to say it's a logistical nightmare, but it is a lot to do. Where another approach, and this is something that we're most likely going to end up doing, is where you just wait to the end of Season 2, and then you just take all the players, or however many, right? You take like the top players, and then maybe some of the ones below that, right? So maybe you look at your top 50 or your top 100 as an example, and then you would re-divvy those players up between our 9 alliances or however many we end up having that are still active right at the end of the season, which, again, my hope is to try and have 9, consistently throughout. But the idea behind it is that it's easier to do it that way because when you go into Season 2, everyone can choose which region they go into. So if you divvy up the players, you work on the power balancing between the 9 alliances to try and have them as close in power as they can, and then you just put everyone's name on a spreadsheet, you let everyone know ahead of time, they'll know exactly where to go and who to join going into Season 2. It's easier to do logistically than if you're trying to kind of do it now at the moment. You could maybe do a little bit at the end of the season once the Augur Stone, I believe it's Unscarred, opens up, and just kind of give you an example of that. Right, I'm kind of turning into like a little TED Talk here, but right, you can do cross-region alliance, right? So third to last chapter, that might be like the last 2 weeks, week and a half, and you'll be able to then have players move freely. So you could do some prep in that regard, but it usually would have to, the best way to do it is really just kind of towards the end of the season. With that in mind, though, again, so kind of gave you a little bit of lay of the land, kind of a status update, overview on diplomacy. You guys are going to take a look at some of the alliance powers. Ooh, let's show you guys some of the leaderboards. For probably individual would probably be decent. I'm still doing some there, so let's we'll do this one. Cool. All right, let's go back and show you guys what's going on. So if we take a look here, you can see, right, we got some players here. Just kind of looking at the boards right now, right, majority of our players are in the top 200. You can see here, again, we got Zizo 1, Shade Turb, Crazy Bob 3, Red Mage number 4. And again, right, bear in mind, we're not 5 days in. This is 4.5 days, done about. And you can see pretty much kind of running the boards with how that looks. I don't know when the next player is somewhere. There's our boy Boss Baby. Now, for those who might be wondering, because I've got this question, they're asking if this is Boss Baby. He was the #1 player in Infinity Kingdom, and he was up there with like Jezstar and a few others as well. And I'm not sure if this is him or not, because I know there was 2 Boss Baby accounts on the IK Discord, and one of them I believe was the real one, and the other one was, unless maybe he was using 2 accounts the entire time, and I just didn't know. But I haven't got that confirmed yet, if it is or not. However, if it is, welcome. And then if you look here, right, just to kind of show you like the first alliance that has someone that isn't in one of ours, right, it would be the number 30 player here. But Herticus, part of Meridians at 2.96, right? And then it kind of starts opening up a little bit more. But if you look at the top 29 positions, right, those are players that are in our alliances at the moment. Ooh, hang on, I didn't show you guys. I don't think there's anything on Merritt's Hall level. No one's at 25 yet, but we got 4 people at 24. Red Mage, Zizo, Ocean 6, J-Derb, resources gathered. Got to give a shout out here to D&D from NXE, man. He's been killing it on the RSS gathering grind, right? Over 100 mil. Expectation from Tunis Close, Kaizoku number 3, right? I mean, again, some good numbers here, right? Where they're gathering. Dragon Trail. I think Zizo might be our first. I can't remember if it is 254, like if it's 270. I always get this one mixed up. I think it is 254 for the first season. So if that's the case, Zizo would be our first max Dragon Trail. And then you got Crazy Bob, who's right behind. Asics here from Nax at number 3. Oramid from NXN 225. Again, looking good. If we look at Alliance Towers, kind of similar in this sense, right? A lot of our alliances are kind of at the top of the boards here. You got Regalia, so Asteria's killing it with 35. Outlaws is next at 34. You got 332s here for Toon Naps, and then Warrior Vikings for 65 WV. NB 65 31. We got Trips Alliance 31 as well here. LG 6530. So I mean, again, right, some good numbers. And if we score to the very bottom, you can kind of get a whiff of how many alliances. I don't know if there's over 200 yet. There's not. So there's almost 200 alliances in the kingdom, right? Tower is indicated. At least CF has been built plus a tower. So you got 195 alliances currently in the kingdom. That's a lot, right? I mean, I would argue, if you're looking at the ones, just as kind of a final note here before we close it off, I would argue maybe the ones that have at least 10 territory or more, is I would say is decent, right? So, I mean, that's 81 alliances. I mean, again, that's still really good when you're thinking about general activity within a kingdom and what you're kind of hoping for, along with building. So, anyways, with that in mind, that is pretty much it for us here to kind of give you the 65 overview. Again, I will say this. I don't know if migration is going to come out. This has been another question I've been getting often is, hey, what are your thoughts on Migration Boss? And, is this something you think is going to happen? I will leave off with the same thing I said last time, which is that from the latest announcement or latest information I've seen is that they announced that I don't want to say announced as in officially, but CoD CS mentioned it in a public chat that, yeah, migration is something they're considering, they're working on. There's just no ETA, nor do we know how they're going to implement it. So again, right, if you're someone who's considering, playing your account and potentially looking at, maybe migrating here, if you think this might be a good fit for you, all right, then, just kind of, keep a lookout. You can always join the Discord as well if you're interested. And for those of you that are just maybe finding this video, and if you're interested in playing here, remember, it is not too late. especially if you're someone who grinds and or regardless if you spend. If you're looking to play somewhere that you really believe in and you think that this kingdom might be that for you, remember, one of the benefits of starting in kingdoms that are already developed is that you're able to typically progress faster than you are in a brand new kingdom, usually because the long-term investment or long-term benefits that you get is from joining an alliance that already has developed tech and already has good consistent activity. And usually all of our alliances have some people, have some number of people that spend as well. Again, kind of through our random player distribution. It's always nice when it works out that way. So that's going to be it for me. As always, right, if you guys do have any questions, thoughts, concerns, comments, let me know down in the comment section below the video. That's going to do it. As always, until next time, I will catch you later.